All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports Podcast. It is now time to preview AFC and NFC South divisions, and we've got a guy who's right in the heart of the AFC South, the sideline reporter for the Houston Texans radio network, John Harris. John's also the content owner and creator of footballtakeover.com, so he is dialed into all things AFC South, Houston Texans. We're going to get his thoughts on both divisions and a couple of topics around the league. So welcome into the podcast, John.
Jason, I appreciate you having me, man. It's always good to talk about just football. It's a lot better to talk about that than the 100-degree heat we've been having here for the last 4 weeks. So, yeah, it's good to talk some ball, man. Glad to be on with you. Thank you.
And we are 2 weeks away. You know, we can't wait till the opening Thursday night here in Kansas City. 2 weeks away. Seems like the last 2 weeks take the longest 2 weeks of the off-season calendar.
Yeah, it is. I'll say this though, after training camp, and you're there every day, and of course, like I said, in Houston, we've had an unbelievable summer. The football has been fantastic, but the weather has just been grueling, and every day was 100+ degrees. So it's really taken a lot out of some people, and I think that's one of the reasons why we ended up not doing joint practices with New Orleans, because we're going to go to New Orleans and be in this kind of weather, in an intense environment. So it's probably wise not to do it. But I think I'm going to need this break in between. We play the Sunday night game, which is kind of weird. Usually it's the Thursday night, the last preseason game, but we're going to play Sunday night in New Orleans, our last preseason game.
Yeah,
and then it's time to get it on. So that week will be definitely needed, a week of kind of just take a breath and get yourself ready for a season that I don't know that people truly understand how long it actually is. Right. When you're taking the road trips like I do. I mean, I travel with the team as a sideline reporter. Man, some of those road trips, we got back from New England the other day, it was like 5:30 in the morning. And I mean, we got to do radio the next day, and I don't know that I could string 2 sentences together. So the 2 weeks are long, but luckily, A, college football steps up and takes on that one weekend, and B, or two, I don't know what I did, A or B, but you just need that week a little bit to get recharged and get ready. And for us, it's going to be Baltimore to start off, so good luck to us.
Well, interesting note, again, all the NFL teams will have to cut down from 90 to 53 by, I think it's Tuesday of next week, so there will be a massive amount of transactions amongst every team in the league, and obviously Houston will be no exception. Before we get to the divisions, give me just your initial thoughts of DeMeco Ryans. You've been around him a little. They've finally sounds like they've got some stability in the coaching staff, in the front office. Just your initial thoughts of being around DeMeco the last 8 or 9 months.
I mean, it's been such a it's almost like a sigh of relief, like, oh man, thank you. I mean, when the job came open after Lovie Smith was let go, and I'll say this for Lovie, I know a lot of people looked at the job that Lovie did. He was put in a really tough situation, and really did the best with what he had and what we were going through. It just was unfortunate with what we've gone through. And Lovie,
other than winning that last game of the regular season, that he.
It's the game that will no longer be talked about here in Houston. It gets brought up from time to time, Jason, but sure Lovie did a solid job with what he had. So when he was fired, and the voice of Texas, Mark Vandermeer, my best friend in the building, I mean, we would just sit in studio and just talk about, okay, well, who do you want? Well, who do you want? We didn't have to finish that sentence. The sentence was, who do we want if it's not DeMeco?
Right.
And we thought that, okay, is DeMeco going to want to come back to Houston?
Remember, he played there, folks. He was a player there for many years, so they knew him very well.
The other side of that, though, Jason, was there was some hard feelings. Maybe, I guess, I don't know if it's the right way of saying it, but DeMeco got hurt in Houston. Rick Smith, who was the GM, traded him to Philadelphia when he should have been the piece of the defense. So, there had been some things that we're like, we're not totally sure. But then we're like, wait a second. His wife is from Humble, Texas, which is just north of Houston.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second. Okay, that's good working for us. And then he turned down a couple other opportunities, and we're like, okay, you think it could be us? Could it be us? Yeah. And then when it turned out to be us, there was this feeling in our building. And Jason, just to show you how tough it's been. I mean, I'm in the building every day. Well, I happened to be at the Senior Bowl that week, and I was hoping it could go one more week, but I was at the Senior Bowl. And I was kind of calling back to get, updates. And so the day that it happened, I was actually at the Senior Bowl. I'm amongst everybody in the NFL. And I've got people coming up to me, scouts from other teams that I know, agents. It's DeMeco, right? It's DeMeco. And I'm like, no, man, it's not done yet. It's not done yet. And we got an email from Cal McNair at about 3:30 Alabama time saying that it was done. And back at the offices, DeMeco had been in the office, and we've got this large area called the Big Fishbowl where all of our business ops works. And so DeMeco walked out with our president, Greg Grissom, and Greg Grissom said, all right, gang, meet your new football coach. And the place erupted.
Nice.
It erupted because those people felt the pain as well. Our people in sales and ticketing that were calling fans, and fans are like, no, I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of that. Right. They were taking the brunt of all of that. Mark and I, who were the voices of all of this, we were taking the brunt of it. And so there was this massive sigh of relief that DeMeco was the guy. And then he's been in the building since, and it couldn't have been any better. It really could not have been any better. He's got a positive vibe. He knows the city. The city loves him. He and Nick Caserio, I think there was a lot of talk about, well, is Caserio going to be around?
Right.
One's from the Patriots side, one's from the 49ers. Those families don't mesh. Those two have meshed very, very well together. Draft night, when they make the deal for Will Anderson, I know a lot of people were talking about, there's too much to give up. But those two were in lockstep about Will, how they wanted to go about getting him. That's been a great marriage. And I don't think people saw that coming. Even we didn't see it coming. We knew Nick was a lot easier to work with than people outside the building knew. We love him. I love Nick. He's awesome. I was worried about that for a bit. Those two have been fantastic. They've been in lockstep. And that vibe that's been created, look, it doesn't turn us into magical winners. I mean, we don't.
It's a rebuild. It's a rebuild.
Right. But we've at least established the foundation, and now we're starting to build the walls. And that we weren't doing the last 3 years.
Right.
And we were just mired in a bunch of what. We got out of the Watson stuff. We got DeMeco, and now we feel like the cargo tanker is going in the direction it needs to go, and hopefully we'll get there sooner than later. Look, we got a lot of room, a lot of ground to make up, but I think we're going to do it in due time with DeMeco and Nick leading us.
And you guys were kind of the splash of the first round. You get C.J. Stroud, the quarterback. You get you trade up to get Will Anderson. So you got two kind of cornerstone guys, you hope, for the next 10 years. Talk about, just to give a quick synopsis of the rest of the roster. And is the goal this year to, obviously you want to win as many games as you can, but is it goal more just to build the foundation of the right way to do things and all those kind of things that DeMeco's established in San Francisco?
I think it's yes to all of it, Jason. I think they've gone into this going, hey, look, we know we have a young roster.
Yep.
A bunch of rookies from 22, Stingley, King Green, et cetera. A bunch of rookies this year. We've got a young team, but a lot of veteran influence.
Yep.
Jimmy Ward was brought in. Hassan Ridgeway was brought in. Sheldon Rankin's brought in. Robert Woods brought in. So there was a young team with a veteran influence. And I don't know if that was the design right away to do that, but that's really the way that it turned out. And we'll have even more cap space in 2024,
right?
Especially with a guy on a rookie deal at quarterback. So we can, at that point, maybe make even a big splash signing to go with what we've got. And that might be the one piece that gets us there. I think this team, our offensive line has still got a couple of questions, but it's going to be good. Everybody healthy. We got to get Titus Howard back. Receivers, that's the biggest thing, Jason. Receivers right now, there are a couple guys you think could emerge, but your best guys are probably your young guys. And, rookies don't know what they don't know.
Especially with a rookie quarterback.
And therein lies the thing on offense, Jason. You've got a rookie quarterback, a rookie center, a rookie play caller, offensive coordinator, a rookie quarterback's coach, and a rookie head coach.
Right.
That's a lot of rookie on the offensive side. So there could be fits and starts, although CJ, I think, has performed pretty well, and he'll get better. I think CJ was the right pick. I've been saying it for a long time. If it's not Bryce, it's CJ. If it's not CJ, it's Bryce. I feel good with either. I think Stroud's really kind of taken to being QB1. He'll be QB1. I'm not worried about that. I just think it's going to be fits and starts early in his career, but there's going to come a time when he hits a groove. Maybe he gets a like the Bills got Stephon Diggs for Josh Allen, and maybe
Right.
that happens for CJ at some point to get a Stephon Diggs type player. But I think this offense will be a run first. It'll be Dameon Pierce. It'll be Devin Singletary.
Yep.
They got to stop the run. But Sheldon Rankins, Son Ridgeway, those guys were brought in to help stop the run. Jimmy Ward is going to be very helpful in the secondary. So I think the defense is going to have some moments. The offense will be a little bit up and down to start.
Yeah.
Once they level off, I think it's going to be a really rock solid football team. Maybe not be the most exciting one right away.
Yep.
But they're going to be competitive in every game they play in, which is not something I could say 2-3 years ago.
All right, let's go to Indianapolis. 4-12-1 last year. They bring in Anthony Richardson. Obviously, they've gone in that direction. Obviously, you got all the drama now going on with Jonathan Taylor. Looks like he's going to be out of there, just a matter of when. Shane Steichen's hired as the coach, come over from Philadelphia. Just your general thought about the Colts. Sounds like they're kind of in a rebuild as well. A little disarray with Bob Irsay running his mouth. Just talk about the Colts.
Yeah, I hate it for Chris Ballard. I've known Ballard for a long time. He's from Texas City, which is just outside of Texas. So I've known Ballard for, probably 25, 30 years, and I feel for him having to go through that situation with Jim Irsay, and just, it's tough. And now you got Jonathan Taylor, and I don't know that if Irsay is out of the mix, if Ballard and a Wisconsin graduate and Jonathan Taylor could come to, terms on a deal. Ballard's never been one to really just hand out contracts and a bunch of money like Tic Tacs. It's just not been his thing.
Right.
But if Taylor's not there in 2023, then I'm not sure what they have.
Right.
I mean, Richardson with Taylor gets dangerous. Richardson with any other running back is
right.
It doesn't really scare you. So
and not
even
great skill people on the outside either. Not great skill on the outside.
No, I mean, I think Alec Pierce is a guy that can turn into something, but I think he's probably a better number 2 than he is. I like Michael Pittman. It's fine, but
he's a 2.
I just don't know that Richardson's going to get them the ball
right
where they want it. He's going to throw things outside the numbers. They're going to hit some deep routes. But the throws that you got to make, the digs, the ins, the basics, those things in the interior part of the field, he's not going to be able to do and do exceptionally well. He's going to rely on his legs. It's probably going to turn into the offense we saw from the Bears late last year. And that could be scary because Richardson can run. I mean, it's the best part of his game.
He'll have his athletic moments where he has some big runs or bursts, but the consistency is going to be what's lacking.
Very much Justin Fields. I mean, Justin Fields was that way last year. We saw him in week 3, Justin Fields, and he ran all over us. But, man, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn throwing the ball.
Yeah, right.
And so now he's got to make improvement. And I think Richardson will make improvement, but not enough, I think, for this year. Defensively, I used to be scared by DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, but Buckner's been banged up.
Darius Leonard,
Shaquille Leonard missed all of last year.
Right.
And so, and especially with back issues, you just never know.
Right.
The secondary doesn't scare me. Right. In all honesty, I think Julius Brent's a draft pick is going to be their best player, but he's a rookie.
Yeah.
The Colts window, I don't want to say is shut, but to get it back open, Richardson has to be the man. And I think he's going to be better than people think, but I don't think he's going to be the man. So I think the Colts, if you're going to get the Colts, get them this year. Now, if they get Taylor back, and I'm not totally sure how that's going to work, but if they get Taylor back and he plays, then it's a little tougher out because you've got Richardson, Taylor, 1-2. Okay, that can be tough.
And the offensive line is pretty decent. They're pretty good run blockers and that kind of stuff.
Right. So it could be a decent offense. Now, if Taylor's not there, nothing scares you. But honestly, nothing will scare anybody at that point. And I think it could be a tough year for them at that point. And they'll find out whether they really love Anthony Richardson or not, because this quarterback draft in 2024 is going to be outstanding. Outstanding. So if he and the guy, then they better cut their losses and go find the guy, because they can find one in the 2024 draft for sure.
All right, let's go to Tennessee, Nashville. The Titans were 7-10. Vrabel at the helm. We know what kind of he's a real hard-nosed, good coach. To me, this smells like the last run for Tannehill and Henry in Nashville. A lot of people, they draft Will Levis. They got Malik Willis. But Levis is probably the guy they'd like to see emerge. Henry's getting up there in years, salary cap issues. This seems like the last run. They bring in a guy well, DeAndre Hopkins, as their wide receiver. To me, it's a stagnant franchise. They're always pretty good, but they're never great enough to kind of get over the hump. Your thoughts?
Jason, I think they hit they hit their ceiling last year. I mean, they lost the last 7 in a row. I mean, they lost to us there in Nashville. They haven't beaten us in Nashville since 2018 in front of a full house. The only time they beat us, they actually shouldn't, was in 2020. When if we converted 2-point conversion at the end of the game, we win the game.
Right.
That would have been 4 or 5 straight at Tennessee. So it's a team that's all over the map. It's one of those teams that you're frustrated playing because you know Vrabel's on the other side. And if it's close, Vrabel's coaching ability gives them a chance.
Yeah.
But you also know you're facing the Titans. So if you can hang in there physically, they're not going to run away from you.
Right.
They're not going to put up 35 points to get into a track meet. You just have to answer them physically. And if you show some nuts and you hang in, you got a shot. And that's what we were able to do in the second game last year. Really shut Henry down over the last 3 quarters, and Malik Willis couldn't hurt us. Now, can Ryan Tannehill? Yeah, I've seen Tannehill do that before.
Yep.
But like you said, Tannehill, I think, is probably on last legs. This is kind of the my friend Mark Vandermeer, who's the voice of the Texans, he uses last house on the left as kind of the last opportunity. This is the last house on the left, I think, for the Titans. Because I think if it doesn't happen, if Tannehill gets banged up and they've got to go to Levis, that's going to be an issue. They got to go to Willis, that's going to be an issue. The offensive line, I think, is the biggest thing. That defense is nasty. I hate Jeffrey Simmons. I hate seeing him. I love him as a player. I hate seeing Jeffrey Simmons. Harold Landry comes back. He's a stud. Tierra Tart's one of the most underrated defensive linemen. They lost David Long at linebacker. That's going to be a loss. But secondary is good. Kevin Byard's a dude. So I don't like facing that defense because they make you work.
They're going to try to beat you 20-17 every week.
That's exactly right. And it's funny because DeAndre Hopkins being over there, I said to Mark the other day, I said, the 2023 Titans are the 2015 Texans. And now they got Hopkins to prove it. We were going to win games 17-13, 9-6. That was the way we were going to do it. We're just going to browbeat you defensively and then hope the offense could do just enough. And in 2015, we did.
Yep.
I think that's the way the Titans are. Their ceiling is 9-8. Their ceiling is 9-8. I don't think they'll be above that. But they'll win games because they have Vrabel and Henry and maybe Tannehill for however long he can play. But they're going to lose games because the offensive line is not good.
Right.
The offensive line has taken too many shots, too many holes. They lost Saffold, Luan, Ben Jones, Conklin a few years ago. They've lost all that over the last 3 or 4 years. You can't withstand that in the league. That offensive line is not where it needs to be. And I think that's going to be one of the things that slows Henry down.
Yep.
And it might mean more of Tajay Spears, the rookie running back out of Tulane, who's a stud.
All right, let's go to Jacksonville. Everybody thinks they're the perennial division favorite. Obviously, 9-8 last year. They win the division. Doug Peterson comes aboard. Trevor Lawrence, massive improvement. They win a playoff game. They play close in Kansas City in the divisional round. Yeah, lots of positivity coming out of Jacksonville. Your thoughts on just again? They're the clear division favorite. Do you like the maturation of Lawrence and Peterson together?
I do, unfortunately. I hate it on one hand, but I do think I was talking to Frank Frangie, who I've known for a long time. I lived in Jacksonville. In fact, started my coaching career down in Jacksonville. So I got to meet Frank, who's now the play-by-play man for the Jaguars. We were talking to the combine. And I said, Frank, what was kind of the turning point for that team? And he said, it was an interception. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they were playing the Ravens, and Trevor tried to scramble, and there was a guy available, and he missed it. And he tried to make something happen, and he threw back across his body, interception. And it was at that point that Trevor went to the sideline and Doug looked at him and said, essentially, are you going to do it my way now?
Right.
And Trevor was like, it was like Nuke Lelouch, following Crash Davis. He was like, yep, I'll do it your way. And once he bought in to doing it Doug's way, then all of a sudden the Jaguars took off. And it's not perfect. And we've seen the Jaguars do this before. 2017 was a magical year for them. 2018, they hit rock bottom again. But that was Blake Bortles.
They got the quarterback now. They got the guy
they got Lawrence. They've got Lawrence, and that's scary. And they went out and I thought made a savvy move and went out and traded for Calvin Ridley, knowing they weren't going to get him in 2022.
Yes.
But they were going to get him in 2023. So now you give a bona fide number one to Trevor. All the other guys, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, they're all a bunch of good number twos. So now you got a bona fide one with a bunch of really good number twos. I think they're really going to throw it around. They got 2 good backs in ETN and then the rookie Tank Bigsby. I think Jacksonville's offense the Jacksonville offense will only be stopped by the effectiveness of the offensive line. Cam Robinson, do they miss him? I think it's 6 games that he's
suspended,
out. Yeah. How long are they going to, is that going to be a problem? They also play a first place schedule. So they play the Bills, the Chiefs,
Yeah.
And who am I missing? They play the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bengals.
Their key to me is you got to make hay in the AFC South. You got to go 5-1 in the division. That's how they're going to have a chance to be a top 2 or 3 seed in the conference.
Right. And they also, as all of us do, we get the NFC South. The NFC South gets us.
Right.
So it's kind of, both divisions can say the same thing. Well, hey, we get the NFC South. Well, the AFC South, they say, well, we get the NFC South. So they can all say the same thing from that perspective, because no team other than Jacksonville really kind of stands out amongst the 8 teams. So Jacksonville does get 4 against NFC South. So if they come out of there, say they're 5-1, like you said, in the division, and they're 3-1 against the NFC South, they're 8-2. At that point, you go to what, 2-5? You're 10-7.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Jacksonville is the clear favorite. You got to put Tennessee in the mix just because Tennessee's got a bunch of vets and they got Vrabel. I just don't buy Tennessee though.
I don't either.
Jacksonville would really have to stub its toe to get to 9-8, 8-9. But I think the Texans, we're going to be right there in the mix. We're going to compete with anybody. And when Stroud makes those strides, we're going to be tough to beat. And then I think the Colts are going to be the team at the bottom of the division, unless Taylor comes back and he's like, you know what? All's good, everybody. I love Indy. I love you, Anthony Richardson. And I just don't see it happening. But I think the Colts are going to be the team that probably struggles the most.
All right, listen to John Harris, Houston Texans sideline reporter, part of the Houston Texan Radio Network. Tell the audience real quick where they can find all your broadcasts online and that kind of stuff once the season gets going.
Yeah, absolutely. Footballtakeover.com. That's my website. I do a lot of college football and draft. That's kind of my thing. Right there, footballtakeover.com, YouTube page at JH Football Takeover, doing breakdowns of college players and all kinds of stuff there. And then I'm on the sidelines for the Texans, HoustonTexans.com. Sidelines, dude, telestrators, any kind of football stuff you can think of, Jason, I do it. So hopefully people will check it out, and I appreciate you having me on.
And this is a guy, by the way, folks, this guy has a master's degree in accounting. Did I read that right? From Virginia?
Yeah. It gets sicker. I have a civil engineering degree from Brown University and a master's of accounting from UVA. And
you're coaching football in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and then I
back in the day
in Jacksonville, and now I just talk about it. So
there you go.
I don't know that the kids out there listening are like, hey, I like that plan. No, don't follow my plan. Don't follow my plan at all. If you go to be an engineer, go be an engineer, make some money, and live well. Don't be like me out in the media just flapping my gums every day.
All right, let's get to the NFC South. Again, to me, this is a division you can make an argument all 4 teams could win this division.
Yep.
Kind of similar to the AFC South, but even more so in the NFC South. You got 4 very, very condensed teams. Nobody's great, but nobody's terrible. Let's start with the Carolina Panthers. Have the number 1 pick in the draft. They trade up with the Bears and get Bryce Young, bring in Frank Reich. Talk about your thoughts of Bryce Young going to Carolina and Frank Reich pairing up with Bryce.
I like I like Frank with Bryce. I think Frank's going to be really good for Bryce and vice versa. What I don't like for Bryce is that offensive line.
Terrible so far.
I mean, it's been awful. And I know they drafted Ike Ekwonu to play left tackle. And I was a believer in Ike. So I've been surprised really with his play. And maybe it clicks in week 1. I don't know. But it hasn't clicked in yet. And that's worrisome. And he's getting beat by the good players in the league, not even the stars. He's getting beat by, Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, he just got whipped the other night. And so if that offensive line isn't protecting Bryce, we talked a lot of people talked about, well, can he take the hits? I'm like, look, he's going to take the hits. He got hit in the SEC. If you can get hit in the SEC, you'll survive.
Yep.
But he's going to take too many. And he gets rid of the ball quickly. He's not one who's going to sit back there and hold the ball. So that offensive line has got to shed its skin quickly. Because I think the defense is good enough to keep
good defense.
The Panthers in games for sure. I mean, between Chin, Shaq Thompson, Brian Burns, Derek Brown, they've got dudes. I mean, the secondary I think is good. It's just a matter of, can they keep Bryce upright? If they
do they have enough elite skill players? I don't see a lot of 2s and 3s receiver wise.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders is good, not great. Do they have enough skill guys to be able to make Bryce effective?
It's gotta be for them. A whole is greater than some of its parts.
Yep.
It's got to be one of those kind of situations where you're right. They don't have a 1, but they got Adam Thielen. He's been around. Terrace Marshall could be a guy. They've got a lot of question marks. The problem is when you got to keep saying if, then you're in a lot of trouble because all those ifs aren't going to be. You're not going to get to the then part. If this, then no, you're not going to even get to then because it's not going to fit. So I do think that they're probably lacking a DJ Moore. Oh, that's right. They traded him,
which they had to get Young. So it's they made the commitment to do that.
Right. And I get it. To get Bryce Young, got to give DJ Moore. Okay. You probably have a better opportunity to go find a DJ Moore like player in the future than you do finding a guy you're going to believe in like Bryce. So I'm looking forward to playing them because I'm curious about them more than I am anything else, because I think that offensive line really holds the fate of that team. If that offensive line gels, then I think the Panthers could be a nice surprise. Yep. I thought they played well at points last year. You're like, man, they're going to get in this playoff mix. How are they going to do this? Got PJ Walker at quarterback, and they got rid of Baker, and man, how are they doing this? And then it fell apart at the end. But if that offensive line is playing like it has in these 2 preseason games, now Giants and Jets have as good a defensive line as you're going to find.
Yep.
So there's that, but that line had better come together a little bit better than that, because you won't face the Jets and Giants every week, but you're going to face some pretty salty ones, and even a couple of them there in the NFC South. So you better get it together on the offensive line, or Bryce is going to be in the hospital, and you're going to be looking at another top 5 pick, and that's not where you want to be, obviously.
All right, let's go to Atlanta. 7-10. Arthur Smith, I believe this is year 3 for him in Atlanta. They're going with Desmond Ridder this year. They're going to see what they have. The 3rd-round pick out of Cincinnati. They draft Bijan Robinson, who well from the state of Texas. The defense is the kind of the part that's holding them back. They got a lot of number 1 picks on offense. You got Pitts, you got Drake London, you got Bijan. So you got some weapons, not proven yet, but you got some guys that got some pedigree. Talk about how key of a year you think this is for Arthur Smith.
I thought about, Jason, and Deshaun Watson's kind of, persona non grata here in Houston for a lot of different reasons. But had Deshaun picked Atlanta, and he's playing indoors, he's playing back at home, which I think would probably move along his transition. I think playing in Cleveland, playing those cold games, Deshaun didn't want to do that, but they guaranteed him a contract and away you go. But if Deshaun were in Atlanta, I would be terrified of that offense.
Right.
Terrified, because I think the offensive line is underrated. I think Chris Lidstrom at guard is arguably the best in the league.
Sure.
McGarry came along at tackle last year. Jake Matthews, I know pretty well from his time here in the Fort Bend district in high school and then A&M. Plus those skill players like, God dang, and Tyler Algier with Bijan. Holy smokes. And they got Deshaun. That said, I do think Desmond Ridder is going to be fine because he doesn't have to carry it all on his shoulders. Flip a screen out to Bijan, hand the ball to Algier, get the ball to Pitts and London. He's going to have opportunities and he'll be protected.
Yep.
I think the Falcons are kind of sneaky hot. That's the one team. I was talking to James Palmer for the NFL Network, friend of mine, and we were talking about it. He said, I wish I could see the Falcons this training camp. He's seen a bunch of teams. He's like, they're just really intriguing. They're really sexy.
If the defense can play, they've been struggled on defense.
You figure you just solved my dilemma. You finished my sentence. You complete me, Jason. That is exactly the point. I think they've got individual players on that side. Like Grady Jarrett's one of the best there's been. And he's fantastic. AJ Terrell, I don't think was tremendous last year, but he's a really good corner. They've got some pieces, but they don't have the whole machine together on that side. And so with Robinson and with Algier, even with Pitts and London there, I think they've got to be a run team that controls clock a little bit.
Yes.
35 to 25 time possession, keep the defense off the field. Defense has got to be opportunistic, create turnovers. But I think the Falcons, if they get better defensive play, they get scary because that offense, I think, has a lot of different layers. And Arthur Smith, I think, is one of the more underrated play callers in the league. But I just don't trust that defense. Not right now. And I think that's what keeps them at, the 7-10, 9-8 range and nothing more or nothing less. They got enough to win games. But I don't know if the defense is good enough to get them into double digits.
And I think this division will be a bloodbath when it comes to the division games. A lot of 3-3, probably a lot of 3-3 records in the division. All 4 teams will be competitive. You can make an argument for all 4 teams winning the division or coming in last place.
Absolutely.
Depending on how you see it. All right, let's head to New Orleans. New Orleans 7-10. Obviously, the big move they made in the offseason, bringing in Derek Carr from Las Vegas. That was the big move. You got an older defense. Hayward, Demario Davis are getting along in the tooth. Still good players. Can Michael Thomas come back to anywhere near what he was to pair up with Olave, who we all think is going to be a really good player? Alvin Kamara done for 3 games, suspended. And to me, one of the big questions is Dennis Allen a competent head coach? Great defensive coordinator, but can he rise up to be a good head coach?
That's a great question. And I think it's probably the $64 million question with them, because I think there are a lot of pieces, there are a lot of things to like. You got Michael Thomas coming back, as you mentioned, and just the solidifying force he can be, that go-to guy on third down. But that also allowed Rashid Shaheed to step up without Thomas, give you a deep threat. I love Chris Olave. He was wide receiver 1 for me a couple of years ago. I love him. And Kamara is the ultimate X factor. There's so much you can do. And then you throw in Jamal Williams at running back, who could be a great goal line weapon. But, we know it comes down to DC4. With Derek Carr at quarterback, he gives them a shot. That team was 7-10 last year, with Andy Dalton and Jameis kind of muddling.
Taysom Hill playing a little bit.
Yeah. So, again, the NFC South plays us. We play the NFC South. So they're probably sitting there going, look, if we go 3-1 against the AFC South, we go 3-3 in division, that's 6-4 right there. Hey, man, we got to really – and I think Derek Carr probably believes that the Saints can be that. Now, Dennis Allen, I'm not sold. But really, it's got to come together defensively. A lot of vets.
Yep.
A lot of vets. A few of them we know from Houston: Tyrann Mathieu, Bradley Roby.
Yep.
I think that could be the thing for them that really is the thorn in their side, is the age and whether guys break down.
The depth. Yep.
I think Brian Brzee was a great pick for them in the draft. If he's the kind of guy that week 1, this guy is an unbelievable fit, and he gives them some youth and exuberance and a player up front. Okay. But if it takes a while for the rookies to hit on defense, and that defense gets older really quickly, I think they could be looking at 7-10 again. But that defense rises up and stays healthy. Brzee is a factor early. Then I think the Saints are the team to me in that division, because of Derek Carr, that they win a division at 10-7.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 10 is probably the max number that the division winner wins this division at. I don't think you'll see an 11 or 12 win team in this division unless something crazy happens. But I'm with you. I think 9 or 10 is the division winner. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's head into Tampa, where I'm at. The Buccaneers 8-9, obviously first year post Tom Brady. Baker Mayfield just announced a start a couple days ago by Todd Bowles, the biggest open secret in the league the last week and a half or so. Why he waited as long as he did, I don't know, but who knows? But Mayfield wins the job, obviously. For now, again, I think this is a fluid situation. I think their bye week is in week 5, so it wouldn't shock me if they got off to a slow start 1-3, that they went to Kyle Trask maybe after the bye week early, but we'll see how that goes. The Bucs with $80 million in dead cap money from all the credit cards they had to pay from the last 3 years with Brady, which Buck fans will take a Super Bowl for the credit card. You'll take that every day of the week. So this is the year they're eating the salary cap money, which is fine. They're going to have a lot of young guys make the roster. Defense actually should be pretty good. They still got some guys on defense, Shaq Barrett, Winfield. The DBs are good. You still got Levante David, Devin White. Just your thoughts. To me, the key to the Buccaneers defensively is the pass rush. Can you get some consistent pass rush? Your thoughts on the Buccaneers? Maybe a little new offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, comes in from Seattle. New system, completely different from what they were doing. Your general thoughts on the Buccaneer state of affairs.
I wish for the Buccaneers case. Now, I was a big Rachaad White guy.
And he's going to get the ball. He's their guy.
I think he's going to end up being a good weapon. I wish they had a little bit more back there, that they could be kind of a run first team. I worry about the losses they've had on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Ali Marpet retires.
Wirfs is getting moved to left tackle from right tackle. So.
And people hear that, Jason, and a lot of times they're just like, it's left and right. It's so different. I've talked to so many guys that have done that, and they're like, man, it's like, Canada and America. It's like complete opposites. Well, they're right next to each other. It's North America. No, it's not. With Baker, I've always been kind of a believer in Baker, but last year started to erode that a little bit.
Yep.
Baker's never been that kind of guy like, hey, let just this game come to me. let's let the game just happen and flow. Let me take some check downs and get some completions and get everybody involved. No, he's always been the one to kind of push the envelope a little bit, which I can admire. But I feel like in Tampa, pulling back the reins a little bit, like, hey, just take profit. Take 5 yards to Mike, take the hitch
to Godwin. You got Godwin.
Right. I mean, just use those guys, use those weapons, throw to, everything's bottled up. Hey, White's open in the check down, just take it.
Hit the tight end.
I think if Baker just does that, to me, Tampa can be as tricky and out, because I do think that defense still has some dudes.
They do.
And I'm glad that Devin White went back, or is back for the time being. I still think that defense is going to be very, very difficult to score on. I love Joe Tryon. It's got to come together to be
this
that
is the
guy.
year he's got to do it.
He's got to be that guy opposite Shaq Barrett. He has to be that guy. But if he is, which I think he can be, boy, that pass rush is good. Vita Vea inside, 2 strong linebackers.
Corners are really good. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Antoine Winfield. They got a good secondary.
The defense will keep them around.
Yep.
And the defense is better than any defense that Baker has had along. And Baker's got to understand, look, don't put them in a bind.
Right.
And if he doesn't put them in a bind, then I think Tampa Bay's got a really good opportunity to be there right with the Saints in that division.
I'm with you. I think they're getting undervalued a little bit nationally. I think everybody thinks post Tom Brady they're going to be bad, and I'm with you. I think if Baker can just like you made, that's a great point. Let the game come to you. Take your 7 or 8 yard profit. Don't try to force one in there. You got really good receivers still in their prime. You got opportunities, and play to your strengths of the team, which is going to be defense. And if they can have a balanced running game with your guy Rachaad White, who I really like too, I think this could be a dangerous team in this division. So, John Harris, great work, man. It's great analysis. Again, find John Harris, Houston Texans Radio Network, Sideline Report. He'll be all over the league this year. HoustonTexans.com for their broadcast. Footballtakeover.com is his website. He does draft analysis, all kind of great stuff with college football world. Keep up the great work, sir. Appreciate the time, and good luck for the Texans this year. You're going to need it a little bit.
We definitely are going to need it, man, but hopefully it's not going to be as bad as the last 3 years. Hopefully we'll make some strides. Jason, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Awesome time, man. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next time on the Powers on Sports podcast.